The episode I'm going to be taking a look at today is Season 2, Episode 10, The Vartabedian Conundrum. This episode gets this title because they have a downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Vartabedian, and when Stephanie is concerned about Penny coming into Leonard's apartment, he explains that it's very casual in the building. He sometimes goes downstairs to get cereal with Mrs. Vartabedian. This is also notably the last episode that has an appearance by Stephanie. So Leonard's first on-screen relationship lasted a total of 3 episodes. This episode does start off with Sheldon getting a ear exam from Stephanie. He thinks he's hearing a noise in his head that is just an octave above middle C, and he's worried as to what's causing it. Stephanie says his ears look fine, but then he says he's worried he has a brain tumor, which she says is very unlikely. Then she gives him a cootie shot to put his mind at ease, after Leonard had suggested that it could be a bacterial infection from all the swirlies he used to get as a child. Stephanie returns to Leonard's room, and as Leonard's trying to join her, Sheldon interrupts and says that he needs to call an emergency roommates meeting, quoting a section from their roommate agreement. Leonard tries to object, but Sheldon overcomes that, and he tells Leonard that they need to institute the cohabitation charter of their roommate agreement if Leonard's girlfriend is going to be living with them. Leonard tries to say that she's not living there, but Sheldon objects and gives him some reasons as to why she is, quoting the specifications laid out in the roommate agreement. Leonard's upset because he said he didn't think this would ever come into play. He is saying that he also signed something in the roommate agreement that says Sheldon would be his sidekick if he ever developed superpowers. Sheldon runs over some changes they need to make in the apartment to accommodate this change, and as Leonard says he's going to bed, he tells him to have Stephanie sign the agreement in a few places. It is nice to see that the roommate agreement starting to come into play here. There are so many various ways it comes into play throughout this show. I really think they missed out by not marketing a copy of the roommate agreement outlining all the ridiculous details that were inside. The next day, Sheldon's not done with his medical worries. As him and Leonard are preparing breakfast, Sheldon had mentioned that he wanted Stephanie to give him a prostate exam, to which Leonard says definitely not. Stephanie comes out and is preparing to leave for work, and Penny comes in, dressed in her pajamas, and is looking for some coffee, and Stephanie is a little taken aback and shocked that a woman's come into Leonard's apartment dressed this way, and Penny introduces herself and says that she knows that she's Stephanie and she's heard a lot about her, and Stephanie's a little shocked because she says she hasn't heard a thing about her and asks Leonard, and Leonard just the only thing he can think to say is that he never slept with Penny, and Sheldon reassures her that it wasn't for a lack of trying. Now this is where we get our title moment, because Leonard says that the building's just very casual, people come and go, he sometimes wanders downstairs in the morning to have cereal with Mrs. Vartabedian. Sheldon's upset because he said he's never had cereal with Mrs. Vartabedian, and Leonard says that she doesn't like him. This seems to put Stephanie at ease, and she does leave for work. Leonard, Penny, and Sheldon then do continue the discussion on whether or not Stephanie is living there. Penny decides to help Leonard decide, and she goes into Leonard's room and notes that a lot of Stephanie's clothes are in his closet. She's put candles on the dresser, a picture of people that Leonard doesn't know on his dresser, his bat signal's gone, and she's put floral sheets on the bed. Leonard tries his best to deny it, but in the end has to admit that they are indeed living together at this point. We next see Leonard at the university cafeteria having lunch with Raj and Howard. He is not dressed in his normal attire at all, and he's wearing some very uncomfortable looking pants that are causing him to itch quite a bit, and he tells Raj and Howard that him and Stephanie are living together. Now Howard, who has not had much success with women throughout this show, then tells him that he's a fool and that he's missing out on many opportunities to be with other women by sticking to just one. He then points out another woman in the cafeteria, noting that he could hit on her and Leonard could not. Leonard says go ahead, but Howard, of course, does not. He tries to say that he's content with things, but then offers them both $20 if they'll trade pants with her. He had noted that this pant must be some sort of polyester fire ant blend. Sheldon, trying to take advantage of having a friend who is a doctor, is now at the hospital, taking his own blood pressure. Stephanie finds him, and he tries to get her to authorize a battery of tests on himself so that he can try to rule out what's causing his troubles. Stephanie denies his request, but he follows her out, saying he at least wants to have one of the tests because he'd already drinking the barium he needed. Leonard is now back at the apartment doing laundry, washing the uncomfortable pants. Penny comes in to do her laundry, and he has to borrow some fabric softener, dropping the whole bottle in. Penny tells him he'll ruin the pants if he puts them through the wash. They're dry clean only, and he says, oh, too late, put them in the wash and started it. He then gets some advice from Penny. He says he's feeling a little rushed into things, and he feels his relationship with Stephanie is moving a little too fast. Penny tells him that he needs to talk to her and tell her what he's feeling. Leonard says that doesn't sound right, but Penny tries to reassure him that he's allowed to speak his mind in the relationship as well. Leonard does go upstairs and try to talk to Stephanie, but they end up sleeping together instead. After which, Leonard returns to the laundry room. Penny had already put his pants in the dryer and told him that they are indeed ruined, which he's happy about. She asks how the conversation went. He said he didn't have it, and she asked him if they slept together, and they did. There's an odd moment here where Penny looks at her watch, I guess timing how long Leonard had been gone, and I'm not sure if she's impressed by the amount of time or thinks it was really quick. That's not too clear. But she continues to encourage Leonard to talk to Stephanie and be honest, and even told Leonard if things don't work out, that's just how it was meant to be. Leonard tries again, but again, him and Stephanie just end up sleeping together. After which he tries to talk to her again, but she's worried that he's saying he's going to break up with her and says he'll call her later and never will, so Leonard can't go through with telling her what was on his mind. We see Leonard again at the cafeteria with Raj and Howard in another outfit apparently picked by Stephanie. It's an ugly sweater with a big blue bird on it. And Howard basically tells him he could take the cowardly way out and text Stephanie what he's feeling. He ultimately decides to do so, texts her, and says he doesn't think he'll ever sleep with a woman again, but he gets a text from Stephanie, and apparently he was wrong, and off he goes. Now, briefly before this, Stephanie had finally gotten Sheldon to be quiet by telling them that his larynx was inflamed and he needed to stop talking immediately. And so we closed the episode with Sheldon going to see Penny. He's using his laptop voice software to talk to Penny. He does his signature triple knock using the computer to say Penny each time, and then he asks Penny if she has some herbal tea and some honey, but the computer accidentally says Heine. Sheldon corrects it, but we end the episode with him looking kind of embarrassed. And that is The Big Bang Theory Season 2, Episode 10, The Vartabedian Conundrum. This episode did have some interesting points in it. For one thing, we do get to see the furthering of the roommate agreement. It's still new at this point, and it gets elaborated on many times throughout the episode. Really, they go to this anytime there's a conflict between Leonard and Sheldon, or anytime Sheldon just wants to exact control over a given situation in his environment. As I said previously about the roommate agreement, I wish they had published a version of this. Now, I understood why they might not have done this while the show was active, because they needed it to be able to change it at any given moment, add whatever they needed for the given episode. But now that the show's over, I'd like them to go back, catalog all of the rules and stipulations in the roommate agreement that were documented in the show, and just fill in some other ones for fun, and put it out in a book format. I think a lot of Big Bang Theory fans would love to read that. And perhaps even use it for themselves with roommates. A lot of fun yet to be had with the roommate agreement. We also see that although Leonard is dating Stephanie, he still seems nervous about the situation with Penny, as he hadn't told Stephanie about Penny. Now, this might not be that unusual, because he might not want to talk about another girl he tried to date. But you think he would mention that her being his neighbor, she does come in the apartment sometimes, so that Stephanie wouldn't have been caught off guard the way she was. It's also interesting to see that Leonard is going to Penny and getting advice for his relationship, considering that he had a failed attempt at a relationship with Penny. Now, as I also noted, this is the last appearance for Stephanie Barnett in this show. She appeared in 3 Season 2 episodes. First Season 2 Episode 8, then Season 2 Episode 9, and in this current episode, Season 2 Episode 10. This is Leonard's first and longest relationship on the show as to date. And it seemed like things were going pretty well, and there was a good chemistry on the show. Sheldon got along famously with Stephanie, but this is her final appearance. She's gone by the next episode, and it's not really ever explained why. You think Sheldon might be more upset about it, though, considering they just lost their McCoy in their landing party. And we see Sheldon having some hypochondria in this episode. Constantly taking advantage of the fact that Leonard's dating a doctor, asking her to check on him when she's at the apartment, and even going to the hospital to try to get free medical tests. Wonder if that might have played a factor in their eventual breakup. All in all, this is a pretty decent episode. I would score this episode at a 7 out of 10. Please let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments section. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and keep an eye out for my next video coming soon.